Hello, everyone. Wonderful to see you today. Thank you for joining us. We have a jam-packed session for you, so I hope you came prepared.
Seeing some familiar faces. Hi, Gavin. Hi, Tara. Hi, Glenn. Hey, David. Kelly, what do you think? I know we have a lot to cover. Should we just go ahead and get started? Give it another minute or two.
I think let's just go ahead. We have a lot to get through, so people can join in as I'll let them in as we move into kind of our opening here. So feel free to kick us off, Bob.
All right, that sounds great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Scoville. I am one of your co-hosts today, along with Kelly Chewning. We are excited about the workshop that we have to offer you this afternoon. Before I do introductions, I'll be introducing Kelly and myself, and of course, Erik Piasio, who is here to tell a little bit about the story of conscious capitalism at his company, ASC. Let me just start with our chapter, Conscious Capitalism Boston, our chapter's purpose and vision. So our purpose is to connect, educate, and inspire leaders and workers to consciously build businesses that positively impact the world. And our vision is to foster the fundamental transformation of capitalism to a healthy, balanced way of doing business for all people and the planet. So Kelly and I, let me just give you a little background. Actually, I see the corporate members here, so just take a note. You can see some of the members of our chapter. These are companies that have gone on the journey to conscious capitalism themselves, and they're seeking to help each other on that journey through peer advisory meetings that they're participating in together, as well as joining sessions like this. So we're delighted to have them as our members. So let me tell you a little bit about your host today, myself and Kelly. We are both board members here at Conscious Capitalism Boston. We've also both participated in a year-long consulting certification program from Conscious Capitalism. And we're joined today by Erik Piasio, who is the president of American Surgical Company, which is based up in Salem, Massachusetts. And they're a med device manufacturer. And Erik and his team have been working to bring conscious business practices into their business for a couple of years now. And I confess that in full disclosure, I have been with them on this path, helping them to make some of these changes. And it's been a lot of fun and really exciting and gratifying to see some of the changes that they've made. So I'm looking forward to hearing you talk about it today, Erik. So welcome to our workshop, and I'm intentional in using the term workshop here, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but we see this as an opportunity for you to build your understanding of conscious capitalism. And in looking at the list of participants, I can see that many of you are familiar with conscious capitalism, and I'm just going to kind of open it up so I can see more of the participants here. But is anybody here, just for our understanding, anybody new to conscious capitalism? Is this their first time hearing about it or learning about it? If you would just sort of give me an indication, either a digital raised hand or a, okay, it looks like most of you are, have heard of it before or been exposed to it. So we're hopeful that this will help you move your organization further along the path to conscious capitalism. But we see it as an opportunity to grow your awareness of where your company is on the conscious capitalism journey and to identify some opportunities to make progress on that path. This is an hour-long session. It's meant to be a quick overview, not a deep dive. hopefully you'll find some questions that you want to explore further, and that may be a source for us for a future session. So when you think about a business, to call it conscious implies that it has awareness. Its employees, managers, and executives pay attention and build their awareness over time of the impact of the business on everything that it touches, and seek to optimize the business to create maximum benefit for all. And so our workshop is built around the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism: higher purpose, stakeholder orientation, caring and intentional cultures, and conscious leadership. We're going to go through each of the tenets one at a time. Kelly or I will be taking turns talking about each of the tenets. We'll share a definition and some basic information about it, perhaps an example. And then we're going to hand it over to Erik to bring that story, that tenet to life, to hear how it has played out for him to implement some of these ideas in his business, to hear the challenges, the joys of that journey. And so this is a workshop. Did I say it was a workshop? This is a workshop, right? So it's, we want to encourage you to reflect. And so after Erik is finished sharing a little bit about his journey, we're going to prompt you with a question. And so we're going to give you 30 seconds to reflect, that little moment, just to take a moment to think about that question and consider that question and how it might, what it means for you and your organization. And then we're going to invite you to jump into a dialogue with someone else from the session today. So we're going to pop you into pairs breakout rooms, and you'll have 3 minutes. And so just know that if you spend your time on a lengthy introduction, you probably won't have too much time to share too many observations with one another. So just take that into consideration. And we encourage you to use the chat to find each other if you want to contact each other outside of the session. And once that time is finished up, we'll bring you back into this main room. And we're going to ask you to share an observation or an insight with the group. Just pop it right into the chat. And so we'll prompt you to do that. So as you can see, this is going to work best if you are ready to participate and engage. If you could give me some kind of a visual indication if you are ready to participate and engage. Excellent. I'm seeing it. I'm loving it. David, right back at you. All right. Kelly, have I missed anything?
You have not. That's great.
Okay, great. Why don't you start us off on our journey with purpose?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that intro. The first tenet, higher purpose. So start with defining what it is that we're talking about. One way to think about it is, what's the difference that you or your company is looking to make in the world? Put differently, what's the worthy problem that you're looking to solve? And I'll also be very clear about this. It's a purpose and profit. This is not, purpose doesn't replace profit in the conscious capitalism world, very much and thinking here. Because ultimately, if you have a purpose, but you have no profit, there's no more work to be done on the purpose front. So this is pursuing both of those for maximum impact. And so why is purpose so important? Purpose, it gives the opportunity for an organization to really galvanize people in a way that working for a paycheck, and that's the sole reason that they come into work every day, simply doesn't allow. And so the real reality here is people are wired to contribute to something that is bigger than themselves. So therefore, when an organization articulates a higher purpose and then empowers its employees to go pursue that purpose, people are energized in a way that just can't be replicated otherwise. And they end up engaging with the company and its mission and its purpose in a way that is significantly greater than would otherwise be the case. And so in the conscious capitalism world, we think of everybody as along a journey. And so a lot of people here today have done good work and are making progress along that journey. And so when we get to the question, you'll see that we've given you a range, a continuum of where you might fall on your purpose journey. And so at one end, you haven't articulated that purpose yet for your company. But on the very other end, you can have a company that has articulated a purpose, that knows what its impact and mission is going to be in the world. And then they actually are measuring progress towards that mission and that purpose. So I wanted to just end with a quick example of a company that would be in that category. And so the company I selected was True Colors Brewing. If you guys are not familiar with them, they are a brewery down in Wilmington, North Carolina. The purpose of their company is they want to build a company to stop gang violence and unite communities across America. So pretty audacious purpose there. And so how do they do that? So they brew beer. That's their economic engine, but that's just like hundreds of other craft breweries around the country or around the world even. Their difference is they are looking to reduce gang violence through the economic opportunity of a business. And so they do this by hiring active gang members, having them go through a 60-day program where they are building trust, they're challenging their self-perceptions, and they're ultimately translating street skills into business skills. And so the result is there are people who are fully engaged with the company as part of its mission to reduce gang violence. And then the way that True Colors Brewing is measuring their progress is they're actually looking at gun violence in their city. And so when they are seeing gun violence decrease, they know that they're making progress towards that mission. And so they're starting in Wilmington, North Carolina, but as that purpose stated, they're actually looking to do this across the country. So it's a pretty audacious purpose, but inspiring nonetheless. So with that, as kind of a background to purpose, let me hand it over to Erik to tell us what American Surgical Company has done in its purpose work.
Great, thank you, Kelly. So we've known for a long time that the why has been missing, right? So I guess over the last 10 years, we've had a whole number of these ad hoc brainstorming sessions where, we go off site and try to figure out why do we do what we do? And they would always devolve into some sort of argument, and we'd end up at our purpose is to grow and make money, and we'd end up talking about the how, right? How do we grow? How do we make money? And really, it was just depressing, frankly. We were always focused on revenue. We were always focused on profit, and that kind of mindset just has these tremendous opportunity costs. I can think of a few anecdotes, but the one that comes to my mind right now is we had this operations position open, I don't know, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And this was a key hire for us. This could have been transformational for the business, right? We lost that person over $10,000 in difference of the salary expectations, right? It's a rounding error in the grand scheme of things, but that P&L mindset is what drove every one of our decisions. And it took us a long time to figure out what our true purpose is. So when Bob started working with us, doing conscious capitalism implementation, this was the first thing that we did, right? What is our purpose? And there was a lot of back and forth. And what gets us out of bed in the morning? What is something that we can unite behind as an organization? And we arrived at to improve people's lives. Now, that sounds relatively simple, right? But this is the purpose that we talk about internally as an organization. It's something we can measure, right? We sell to physicians that use our products during surgeries. So we know how many patients are affected by our products. We know how many employees' lives we help. We know through volunteering efforts in the community, how many people we help, right? So it really is a unifying purpose that we can all get behind. Now, it took us a while to arrive at this purpose, and it was something we really believe in and we feel strongly about, but I'm gonna be perfectly candid here. It is not the sole factor in all of our decision-making, right? Obviously, we have to continue to make money, right? But what we found is when we're talking to our employees, when we're talking to our vendors, when we're talking to our customers, the relationships are less transactional, right? It's more, how can we help each other? And it's really just had this amazing impact over the last couple of years. So a couple of weeks ago, I was on a call with our director of sales. We were talking to a surgeon about possibly doing a strategic product development deal with them. And I was listening to my director of sales talk about our purpose of improving people's lives. And it just framed the conversation in such a way that it was actually incredibly productive. Whereas a few years ago, it would have been dollars and cents in the back of our mind. Well, how can we make money off of this? So it's just phenomenally powerful. And we sell to neurosurgeons. There's less than 4,000 of them in the United States. They're a hard group to get a hold of. And what we found, believe it or not, they're starting to come to us, right? It's like all of a sudden they're seeking us out. And I don't know if it's all because of us having this purpose and operating from this standpoint, but it's certainly helpful. And I still love making money, right? The first thing I do in the morning when I get in is check the bank accounts. I check the P&L as much as I ever have, right? But there's a purpose behind it now, right? There's something that gets me out of bed in the morning, gets my employees out of bed in the morning. And it's amazing. I honestly am just blown away by the change, just defining that purpose has had on our organization.
That's great. Thank you so much, Eric. Those are powerful examples. So what we're going to do now is let you all take a chance to reflect on purpose in your organization. I've submitted in the chat just so you can see what the questions are, and you can take a moment. I'm going to do something that I've never done before and actually play some music just for 30 seconds while you guys take a moment to reflect on that. And then from there, we will put you into breakout rooms and you can have a quick conversation with folks about what it is that you are reflecting on. So I will give you your 30 seconds now. Okay. And with that, let me push you all and you guys can all go have a quick chat about where you are on purpose.
Rebecca, were you able to see the blue button inviting you into a chat room? Or Mike? Mike, you able to hear us okay? Well, it looks like most everybody else was able to find their way, so that's good. He's here because I saw his comment in the chat.
Yeah.
Nobody home, John? Was there? You're on mute. You're on mute, John. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was in a room of one person, so I was enjoying myself, but I didn't think that was the point.
Well, why don't you talk to us a little bit? I saw your note. You said you're at number 3, right? Which is, we have a stated purpose and we do no harm. Business is business.
Yeah, I have a question. I'll be glad to answer, but so I have a firm that invests in smaller companies, and I have a nice long story I could tell, but I'll leave it at that. For each company, we have a mission around how we serve customers and how we do good to, do a nice job there. And it's all about revenue goals and profit goals. But so as a kind of an adjunct to that whole thing and participated by by the companies, there's 2 that participate in this and 2 others, but we have a community stewardship foundation, and its purpose is to support employees where they want to give their time and money. So if one of our employees in our company in Knoxville goes to the homeless, gives $2,500 to the homeless shelter in Knoxville, then we triple it. But if you can not only use money, you can use time. So if they go spend 25 hours trying to do some sort of good at the homeless shelter, then they get $100 of credit. So we send a $7,500 check then too. So we have very distinct goals for the foundation around community stewardship. It's built on both doing good in the community and building the companies, because those employees go to the places that are most important to them, and their company, us as their company, we support them in that, and they value that. So it builds the company and the employees kind of all at the same time. But that's not really the purpose of any individual company. It's sort of an appendage off to the side that gets attention, sometimes. And I can only get a fraction of the people to participate. I can't always get all of them. But to me, it's, we've had a huge impact, but we're not really doing it on a purpose platform. I don't know how that factors into the conscious capitalism methodology.
Yeah, well, I think what I would say is that we don't have a lot of time to respond because I think folks are coming back from their rooms. But what I would say is that you're having that's positive and having a great impact if, to the extent that you can focus that or offer something more specific, you may be able to have even more impact.
Okay.
So, we can continue the conversation perhaps at a later date, but I'll leave it at that. But I will say that's exciting and sounds fantastic with the work that you're doing there.
Thanks.
Take it away, Bob.
Thanks.
Mari, I saw your response. That was quick, not enough time, and I'm right there with you. And we tried to give you some sense that was coming, and
no, not even close.
These breakout rooms can feel abrupt. And who raised your hand if it felt a little abrupt for you? Yeah, so for a bunch of you, it's quick. We'll give it a few more shots and see how it goes. And if we may just sort of shift our approach, we'll see how things are going. But we just want to take a moment to invite you just to pop any observations apart from the pace of the breakout room. Anything you picked up from that conversation about purpose and observation and insight from your conversation, go ahead and just pop it into the chat. If you happen to have a question, you can pop that into the chat as well. And we're not going to get to it right now. We're going to kind of keep on rolling in keeping with our pacing. We're going to move on to stakeholder orientation. But we know that there were insights and observations, and just want to encourage you to pop those right into the chat. All right.
Yeah. Terrible. Oh, sorry.
It's okay, Diane. Good to see you.
I gotta mute myself.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so we're going to jump into stakeholder orientation. So I want to start by just making a distinction of stakeholder orientation from the traditional capitalism model in which the business is optimized predominantly for shareholder benefit, right? In other words, maximize profits for the shareholder. In the stakeholder orientation model, the business seeks to create value for all of its stakeholders. So who are a business's stakeholders? They're certainly the shareholders, the employees, the customers, the vendors, the community, the environment. If we want to be expansive in our thinking about shareholders, it could include the government, it could include the media, it could include regulators, right? So it just sort of depends on how broadly you want to think about it, but it's thinking about who or what does the business touch and impact. And so the challenge with stakeholder orientation is building a business that creates value for all of those stakeholders all at the same time. That doesn't mean they all get equal benefit, but the intention is to create value for all of them. And so the challenge there is to avoid trade-off thinking, right? Because in trade-off thinking, the idea is that if I want my employees to get benefit, then, well, I guess the shareholders have to sacrifice in order for that to happen. And so to avoid this, a company needs to be patient. Its leaders and managers and employees need to be patient and creative in their efforts to create value for all of the parties involved. And that value may come in different forms. It's not just financial value. There's social and emotional value, spiritual value, there's intellectual capital. There's any number of different kinds of value that business may be able to create for its stakeholders. One of the companies that I think is just a wonderful example of stakeholder orientation is Patagonia. So it's a well-recognized brand, and part of what they're known for is the value creation that they create. Now, not just for their shareholder, Yvon Chouinard, it's a privately held company, and the impression is from, I don't have insight to their financials, but they've certainly grown by all accounts, and the value of the business has grown considerably over time. But they're focused on the environment. They're moving toward 100% renewable and recycled materials. They promote regenerative organic agriculture. They use no conventional cotton in their apparel. When you think about their workers and vendors, they've done extensive auditing and examining of their supply chain. They pursue fair trade certification of their products, so their workers earn a fair trade premium. They've committed to confirming that a living wage is paid to all workers making their apparel by 2025. They guarantee everything they make to their customers. They're very focused on quality. They offer product repair centers. They donate 1% of net revenues primarily to grassroots environmental nonprofits, impacting the communities. And so they're seeking to, and I guess what I would say is that Yvon Chouinard as an investor certainly appears by the choices that they've made, particularly around their advocacy, to be a patient investor, right? He's not just thinking of the short term, but he's also thinking of the long term and building. That's one of the things about these tenets is they're interconnected. He's thinking about their purpose. So Erik, tell us a little bit about your journey at ASC to create value for all of your stakeholders.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, so manufacturing our products is a very, say, labor-intensive process. And I think it goes without saying, all you know, labor costs have increased dramatically, certainly when you factor in benefits over the last decade or so. So we approached it as, well, what do we do, right? We have to protect the bottom line. So we either have to raise the prices on our customers or automate or outsource our manufacturing and punish the employees. We decided to try to automate. So we spent a lot of money and a lot of time trying to automate a very difficult manufacturing process, and it was marginally effective. So when I first started to get interested in conscious capitalism, and this was before we decided to take the leap and implement it, we began to consider the stakeholder approach, right, in terms of taking care of everyone. So I kind of had this epiphany, and I'm like, all right, well, we obviously have a problem with increasing labor costs. Well, what if we double down, right? What if we pay our employees more? What if we invest in training? What if we invest in tools that make their jobs more productive? Will that get us to our productivity goals? And internally, I mean, this was met with a fair amount of skepticism. My previous manufacturing manager actually quit because he didn't believe it was possible. But over the last 4 years, right, we've been able to more than double our revenue per manufacturing employee. So it's just been this tremendous increase in gross margin. And we are paying our employees more. We've given them skills. And most of our manufacturing employees are immigrants, right? So we've also given them a leg up. We've given them skills. So when they go out and they look for other jobs, they're going to be able to get higher paying, better jobs. We've been able to prevent massive price increases for our customers. And for some of our products, we're the only game in town. So we have a lot of pricing power. And our gross margins are through the roof. So it's a win for the employees, a win for the customers, and a win for the shareholders. So this stakeholder approach, and I wish I knew about this 10 years ago, but it is just phenomenally powerful, certainly for a business like ours.
Thanks, Erik. That's a great example of how you guys avoided the trade-off thinking. All right, so Kelly has just popped into the chat your reflection question. So what we want to do is just give you a moment to consider this. Think about all of your company's stakeholders. Whether you're a company of one or of many, you have stakeholders. And so consider all of them and which of them might be underserved. And how might your company bring them more value? So just take a moment to consider that, and then we will pop you into the breakout rooms to share with a partner, to connect, and hear a little bit about how they think about this question.
Okay, I'll open the rooms now for your conversation. That'll be quick.
Microsoft 038-286. Work.
So for those of you who are still here, I don't know if you're able to see the blue button, if you're invited to the room, if you're electing to stay here. You're welcome to stay here or head to the breakout room. Either one is fine.
JP, were you in that room by yourself? Is that where you popped back in?
I was again, yeah.
Sorry
I
about
decided
that.
not to stay by myself this time.
Understood, yeah. I don't know what happened there. I had moved people around and it.
Well, for those who that happened to, who are hanging out here, why don't we talk a little bit, at least in the minute or so that we've got, about stakeholders? Like what are you noticing as you think about your company, JP?
Well, I'm 3 weeks into it, so I don't have enough. I haven't really sat down and thought about it all, but it is a process that I very much want to go through. It's a small company. There's just like 4 of us right now. And there's a lot of gaps there that need to be filled, and I certainly intend to do it. But again, have to put some thought into it, so I don't know really the answers right now.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Mike, if you're up for it, I'll call you out just because I know Sentinel and you're certainly very focused yourself on the community side, right? In terms of how can Sentinel create value for the community? How do you think about this question of stakeholder orientation and where the opportunities are for Sentinel?
Yeah, I think that we have, I'll take it from that angle because that's where I spend a lot of my time, but in the things that we do in our community, we've felt that we could do a better job at times engaging some of our business partners, some of our clients in doing some of the things, not necessarily just because we're doing them, but because we might want to advocate for some of the people who are helped by the mission in the communities, the organizations that are serving the community. So we feel as though that we could create a little bit more strength in the community by engaging some of our friends, inviting our friends along with us.
Cool. Well, and is your sense that there's value for the organization and creating value for the community?
Absolutely. It gets into every conversation. It starts with the recruiting for employees question. People bring it up more and more now in the conversation where people and culture talk about those kinds of things, and it adds value to the culture of the company because people want to get involved in something like that. But it also is a great talking point for either current clients or prospective clients. They love to see that type of thing.
Cool. Thank you. Kelly, are we pretty much, do we have everybody back at this point?
I think we do. So I will continue us on our quick run through of our tenets here. So the third one is culture, conscious culture, and culture has certainly been a popular thing to talk about in the last handful of years in the business world, probably popularized by a lot of tech companies, and to them, culture would be the corporate kitchen is stocked with snacks and beer when we were all in corporate kitchens. Or there's ping pong tables and foosball tables and in the employee lounges. That's not the culture that we're talking about here. For us, by culture in the conscious capitalism world, we are looking to foster cultures that can largely be characterized by an acronym tactile. So that stands for trust, accountability, caring, transparency, integrity, loyalty, and egalitarianism. And so all of those are examples of values that can describe a conscious culture. But beyond a stated value, for a culture to actually embody these words, you and your employees need to actually behave according to those values. And so the question that we're going to have you ponder here is, how consistently do the behaviors of your company's employees, managers, and executives show your culture at its best? And what can be done to increase that culture at its best? And I thought I would just give a quick example that I've come across recently around culture. Brene Brown is a researcher and an author. Probably a good number of you are familiar with her. So she runs an organization where one of her organization's values is clear, is kind. The idea being that you want to be direct with people, and that's the kindest way that you can interact with them. And so that's a value for their organization as a whole. But what does that actually look like in practice? And so what they've done is they've gone to the next step where they've documented behaviors that support that value. And so for them, one of the behaviors that supports that value is that they don't talk about each other behind one another's backs. And this was kind of brought home to me in a exchange that Brene had with a person on one of her podcasts, where she was relaying that if you were to join her team for a meeting, and at the conclusion of the meeting, you walk out and you started talking about people that were in that meeting, or maybe some observations you've had, but that you weren't saying in front of the whole group. Brene said 90% of her employees, not 100, but 90%, she was confident would actually stop and interrupt you and say, if you have more to say about this, we need to return to the meeting room and let's call everybody back and continue the discussion there. And so I just thought that was a really powerful example of how a value is translated into a behavior, and then a behavior that is really, stuck to, and so much so that Brene had confidence in saying that her team would follow through on that behavior. So just thought that was a good example to share. So with that, let me give it to Erik to give us some examples from his company on culture.
Thank you, Kelly. So yeah, for a while, we've been asking ourselves, what is our culture, right? How can we improve our culture? We've been talking about that. We like to call the backyard barbecue conversation that our employees are having with their friends, over the weekend when they're flipping hamburgers and drinking beer. And what do they say about ASC? And we just were really at a loss, right, in terms of how to change that culture, right? And we kind of we're a mature company. We've been around for 35 years, and it was just a struggle. And it really wasn't until we started to learn a little bit about conscious capitalism and the tactile approach to values, right, and the behaviors that support those values, that we were really able to define our core values that are the foundation for our culture. So for us, it's 4 values: it's do the right thing, succeed as a team, find a way, and embrace change, right? And when COVID hit, our order volume dropped by 50%, right? I mean, it was like hitting a wall. So previous situations, right, previous crises like this, the first reaction would have been, all right, who are we gonna cut, right? And we actually used our values to guide us through COVID, right? At least the early phases, when we had no idea what was going to happen, and possibly the survival of the business was at stake. So we got together as a group and we said, all right, guys, we have to do the right thing, right? It would not be doing the right thing to cast our employees out into the economic uncertainty that was, what was going on in the spring. And we have to share our fate, right? We have to succeed as a team. So we're going to do this together one way or another. We are going to find a way through this. And it's a fluid situation. So we're going to have to embrace change and be ready to adapt, right? So we were able to keep our entire team together. We didn't lay anyone off. We kept our momentum going. Luckily, orders recovered quicker than we thought. And we were actually able to capitalize quicker than our competitors were. So our market last year, target market, dropped by about 30% in the United States. We were able to grow each quarter. Our revenue grew each quarter. So it was just amazing. If we laid people off, there's no way that could have happened. So it's just being able to define this and using the values in your culture to drive you through these sorts of situations has just been amazing. And it's something that's relatively new for us.
That's great. Thank you, Eric. So I know I mentioned in what I was talking about what the questions are, but I just popped it into the chat for you to take a look at and reflect on what the culture is at your organization, and maybe what can potentially be done to increase when you guys are at your best. And then we can kind of go either way. Bob, do you want to shift for purposes?
Sure, let's shift in break from the breakouts. If the group is okay with that. One of the things that we noticed is people were going to some breakout rooms and it was just a breakout room of one. So you were getting more reflection time than you were anticipating. So we thought we would just kind of open it up to the group for a moment or two, just to see if anybody feels compelled to share or talk a little bit. When you think about this question, how consistently do the behaviors of your company's employees, managers, and executives show your culture at its best? That's an opportunity for you to assess, right? Are we there? I liked hearing Kelly's example. 90% of the time, or 90% of my employees would stop that conversation. And when you think about your values and behaviors expressed in your organization, if you have them, what's your sense? Because that's not always the case. And wherever it is on that spectrum, what are you doing or thinking about doing that might increase the amount of time that the culture is at its best? Anybody have something that they want to share with the group?
Mari, do you want to go?
Yeah, I work with a lot of large organizations. I'm a workplace well-being strategist. So the core value of caring is something that my clients all have, because they're really caring for their employees. But one of the things that I think is really important to this is that I see with my clients is how they encourage the behavior by rewarding the behavior. So they have different mechanisms that they use within their organization to really recognize those people that are demonstrating the behavior. So for example, one is a hospital system here in the Boston area, and they have these caring awards that they give. So there's a system that you can do peer recognition. And I have another client that does a big peer recognition piece as well, where you can nominate a colleague for something they did, just a gratitude kind of thing. And by giving actual recognition processes to it, I think it really brings into sharp focus those behaviors that, that the organization wants to continue to see demonstrated.
It's a great example, Mari. And I think that opportunity to recognize and reward, it really reinforces these values and behaviors, and it gets to the point where people live them naturally. Hopefully, many of these behaviors are just discovered. In other words, they're natural for the community anyway, and that's part of how they get discovered. Anybody else have a thought or an idea they want to share with the group? All right. Well, with that, let's.
I had one more, Bob, that I just wanted to mention, and this goes to the transparency piece. Yep. So I think the COVID crisis has really given organizations an opportunity to really exemplify the transparency value. And with one of my clients, from the day that they sent their entire workforce home, to work from home, they started doing, and they did this from March through August, a daily email from senior leadership. And early on, it was essential because things were changing so much. But that level of transparency, of literally saying, we're here for you, we're supporting you, and here's what we're doing, was so important for people to really get through that important change process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you enough about that. I've heard of the emails, I've heard of videos that, you know, the CEO is doing on a regular, like even a weekly basis, to send to all employees in the organization with updates about here's where we are and how we're approaching this. And so I'm right on board with you. I think that's really powerful and just gives a sense of stability in the midst of the chaos that everyone was and may still be experiencing. So, all right, I'm aware of the time and want to honor our time, so I'm going to keep us rolling into leadership, and I might abridge my comments a little bit to get us into Erik's sharing, but let me just talk a little bit about conscious leadership to say, you know, and I think a good place to start is, you know, connecting back to COVID as Mari did, and just the events of the past year and how it reinforces this idea that the world is changing faster than our ability to adapt, which is a really powerful and challenging idea, which suggests that we need to foster our ability to adapt. And one of the ways to do that is to bring out the wisdom of communities. And so the notion of conscious leadership is a departure from traditional models of top-down leadership in which the leader is the hero, in which the leader has all the answers, in which the leader tells everyone what to do, right? And so it's an evolution to a servant model in which the leader is creating value for the employees of the organization or the members of the organization. They're unlocking the wisdom of others. They're creating psychologically safe environments and building leadership throughout the organization. These are the kinds of leaders that see not just the numbers, as Erik was describing earlier in our conversation, but they see the people, and they see the people behind the numbers. They're characterized, among other things, by strength. They oftentimes need to take positions that may have opposition, long-term orientation, love, and caring, right? I accentuate those words because they're so uncommon in traditional notions of business. Emotional intelligence and systems intelligence. And so you think about it, what's the impact of this kind of leadership? Well, people grow and develop. Teams develop a sense of shared responsibility. These are the kinds of leaders that get extraordinary performance out of ordinary people. And one of the most profound is that people get healthier. So I'll just stop there because I want to give Erik a moment to comment a little bit about the leadership journey at ASC and hear how they think about leadership and how they're working on it there.
Yeah, so thank you, Bob. Honestly, of the 4 tenets, I thought that this one would be the easiest, and it is the one that we've been spending the most time on. It is a challenge. I mean, like Bob mentioned, most organizations are top-down, command and control, and we are the same. So most of the decision-making is concentrated further up, people further down. They don't have that level of responsibility. They're not really making very many decisions. And I honestly thought that it would be easier than it has been to make those kinds of changes. So we were kind of struggling, like, how do we approach this? So Bob introduced us to David Marquet's intent-based leadership model, which is really transitioning the organization from a leader follower operating, operating under the leader-follower model to a leader-leader type model. And it is, so far, it's been very, very beneficial, but it has been challenging, right? So you have kind of this natural tension between the people at the top of the organization leading and then the people further down in the organization following, right? So we want to try to delegate more. We want to try to give people, more decision-making authority. But what we're finding, one, it's very difficult to delegate, right? It's hard to let go of certain tasks. And then further down in the organization, it's really hard for people to make decisions because they are, frankly, I think, afraid, right? We haven't really given them the freedom to fail, the freedom to make wrong decisions. And that's really what we're focusing on right now. And so far, so good. Ask me 12 months from now how it's going. But like I said, of the 4 tenets, I think this one has been surprisingly the most challenging. So it's still a work in process for us.
Well, and that's the nature of a journey, right? That it is a work in process, and it's not all easy, that there are challenges associated with this. And I hope that and I know that many of you are exposed to these ideas and working on this in your own organizations, so you're aware of that. Kelly just popped into the chat our question for you. So consider the decision-making, sense of empowerment, and leadership at all levels of your organization. What else could your company do to grow leadership at all levels? And so we'll just leave that for you as something to consider as you reflect and digest this conversation. But I wanted to take a moment just to thank all of you for participating and for being here and for engaging. We're eager to get your perspective and feedback. Kelly, I believe you've got a link that you can share with folks to offer that feedback. If you want to learn more about our chapter, please don't hesitate to reach out now to either Kelly or I, or to just shoot us an email. We definitely would love to follow up and help you learn more about what the opportunities are in engaging with our chapter. And if you have any questions about these ideas or you want to continue the conversation, we are certainly by all means open to that. And so please, Kelly just put her email in the chat. Please don't hesitate to reach out and share. Both of our emails are there. And so again, thank you so much. Before we leave, any closing comments or thoughts or perspective anybody wants to leave before we hit the road?
Good.
Thanks to you. Thanks, Kelly and Bob, for doing this.
Yeah, and thank you, Eric, for your examples and all the work that you've been doing in your organization to be such a great example of conscious capitalism.
Thank you all. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
We could have gone for another hour too, Tara. I love your comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. Thanks for joining. And yeah, look forward to just continuing the conversation. We will continue over the course of the year, actually having more of these practicals. This one, we were trying to do the overview of every tenet, but we are going to do a little bit of a deeper dive moving forward into one tenet. So give a little bit more space over the course of an hour to a single pillar where we can do a little bit more conversation on assessing and then potentially operationalizing those tenets in your organization. So, so I hope that that's appealing, because we will continue doing these workshop type events throughout the course of the rest of the year. So thank you. And with that, we'll close. So good night, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, Eric.